What's up, sports fans? Welcome back to another episode of Sports, of Course, with Jonah and RPF. We are well into the NFL playoffs, and things are shaking out quite possibly not as I think either of us really expected, but we'll get into that. Before I do, you can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Podbean, all the great platforms. You can find us socially on Instagram and X, as well as our dedicated YouTube channel. Just head over to any of those platforms, type in Sports, of Course, with Jonah and RPF, and we'll pop right up for your listening pleasure. RPF, there were a few games, but a lot to dive into, so we'll get into it. But before we do, as always, how are you, my friend?
I am well. You know, as we're fond of saying around here, and they said we wouldn't last. You know, this is actually our 21st episode of season 4, which is kind of great. I think next week we'll break our record for 22 episodes. So, yeah, I'm excited, and things are shaping up in football and everything else. This is kind of that sweet spot of like all the other leagues are like in high gear, and football is culminating to a crescendo. So it's really a fun time.
Yes, absolutely. So speaking of said football league, let's dive right into our previous weekends.
I love the fact that there's an option for the CFL and XFL, whatever it's left anymore.
Let's dive into last weekend. We'll start with the Texans and Ravens. RPF, was there any realistic chance that the Texans would win this game?
At halftime, it was 10-10, if you remember. I mean,
it was absolutely.
I mean, I knew they wouldn't win because they couldn't move the ball against that. You know, and by the way, Clowney, which I've been talking about since the first episode of the preview of the season, that was scary as a Dolphins fan that Clowney was playing for the Ravens. He's been kind of relatively quiet this season, but all of a sudden, you know, playoff time, he shows up and, you know, single-handedly kind of just makes C.J. Stroud look, you know, not quite a rookie, but not great, you know. So anyway, the Texans had a good special teams play. Obviously, scored a touchdown. That's the only way they got in. The defense of Baltimore, which I've been saying since the preview episodes of this podcast, that they're going to be a force. I mean, Lamar does Lamar things until he doesn't. But even then, that defense is not what it was before. So I think this year, I mean, I'm going to be unpredictable in my picks as always, but I think Baltimore Ravens are as complete a team as there is in football.
Yeah. I think going into the game, I think realistically, I didn't think the Texans would win. Emotionally, I was hoping that they would.
Remember, we both picked emotional picks.
Yeah, we did.
Come on, CJ, you can do it.
Obviously, it's an incredible storyline. You've got a rookie coach up for Coach of the Year. You've got a rookie Offensive Player of the Year. You've got a potential rookie Defensive Player of the Year, a rookie offensive coordinator. Like just so many things. Yeah. Kind of against their favor, but in a little ways, like sort of with their favors. We talked last week about sort of the naivety of like, hey, you've never been here, so you don't even understand what's happening. But I think they got into the category now, believing the hype a little bit. Yeah, and so we ended up. Emotionally, I wanted them to. Realistically, I didn't think they would. But to your point, at halftime, I was like, oh shit, like they're doing it. They're doing this. And then the Ravens said, nah, I don't think so.
Yeah, they're like, okay, let's get to business here. And it was pretty overwhelming the second half. I mean, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, Lamar, can we just say again, I don't know how else to say it. Lamar Jackson does not get the credit he deserves. You know, I was looking at an old clip when he was drafted. He was the last quarterback in the green room being drafted that year. Right. There's a scene with him and his mother. And his head is hanging down. His mom puts her hand on his shoulder, and she tells him something like, "It's going to be great. You'll get them at the end." Yeah. And I'm thinking, "Damn right, Mom." You know. So I was like, really, I don't know. I just feel I'm almost emotional about him because I feel he's gotten such a raw deal, even though he's like one of the world's greatest paid quarterbacks now. But even that whole year that they made him go through, and is he going to be traded to Miami? Is he going to be going here or there? And is he as good as everyone else? And yes, to all of it, he's better than everyone else. So I'm excited for him personally. So
yeah, really, really cool to see. Along the same lines as the Texans almost upsetting the Ravens, the next game we had the Packers almost squeaked one out here.
I've been talking about the Packers. I mean,
I
the
know
Packers,
you have. I know you
and
have.
by the way, the Packers are bringing everyone back next year, FYI. And
So this, to me, my
you know,
question for you on this game, this was a vintage. This is a vintage. What does it tell you more about? Does it tell you more about concerns for the 49ers or hope for the Packers going forward?
well, I think a little bit, as always, a bit of both. I think the Packers kind of, they shot above the rim the past few weeks.
Yeah.
They had to. I mean, no one was really excited about a Packers Lions NFC Championship game. So let's be real for a second. I mean, we had to have the Niners to kind of show up and be the adults that they are in the room. I mean, a fun stat for the Niners in the past decade, I think they either don't make the playoffs at all or go to the championship game, which is a very kind of
All or
like
nothing.
feast or famine type of deal. Yeah, but I think the Packers are very well positioned and situated for next year to make a deep run. I think the Packers could be the Lions of next year, in that way. But I think the Niners, without Samuel, which as of this podcast is 50-50, whether he plays or not this weekend. If he doesn't play, it's a different team, as we mentioned. By the way, Christian McCaffrey, I mean, how fucking good is he? I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, it's like, it's bad enough. I always have this theory that God is fair. Like, if God gave you like great looks, you're not necessarily the brightest person in the room, or if you're brilliant, you're kind of like nerdy in other ways, or can't pick up girls, or the law of fairness, if you will.
Sure.
McCaffrey, I'm trying to identify a weakness. I mean, he looks like a movie star. He has a movie star girlfriend. He looks like a Greek god chiseled out of Thor's universe. And then he does things that other humans can't do on the football field. I'm like, what? Really? I mean, anyway, he annoys me in the best ways. I guess that's kind of like the best way. Anyway, but he's
very positively annoying.
Yeah, no, exactly. You like what's that famous off-Broadway play? Like, you're perfect, now change, right? So anyway, but yeah, he's just so fun to watch, and he can get stopped 3 straight plays and then breaks. And, I'm here. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I got you now. We're good.
Anyway, so that's probably the McCaffrey like fan base like fighting back at me or something. Look, don't get it wrong. I mean, he's a 10 on all fronts, but but he's not enough. I mean, I'm just saying he can't be the only weapon that Brock Purdy has, because Brock Purdy, we've seen him be a kind of like slightly above average pedestrian, almost like quarterback if he doesn't have his weapons. So he needs Samuel there to kind of offset McCaffrey's power. So I think that's going to be a big telling sign. So my point is, if Samuel is not there, I give the Lions a better than even shot of pulling this off. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what we've been saying about the 49ers all year long, which you mentioned a second ago, and that is missing any key player, and they're just a completely different team. And quite frankly, I didn't think they were going to pull this one off until, I don't know what the time stamp was, but like 5 minutes left in the game or whatever. I didn't think it was going to happen. And even when it did happen, it was still like barely happened. I'm looking at stats, and it's not like it's not like Brock Purdy threw him on his back and took over.
No.
Christian McCaffrey, as good as he is, had pedestrian numbers for him.
Yeah.
Had pedestrian, he's just over 100 yards. But
listen, lest we forget, in the middle of the season, the Niners lost 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. 3 in a row. That's not typical for a Super Bowl team that's going to be destined just to be in the final game. I mean, essentially, they were the Eagles during the midseason, and what the Eagles were at the end. So let's not forget, and the only reason that happened was because, we say it with me, Samuel and McCaffrey were both out. So that's the point. If Samuel's out, the Lions, I think, have a better than even shot of upsetting the 49ers.
Yep, I agree. And we'll get into those predictions as soon as we finish this recap here. And speaking of said Lions, said my mighty Lions, they took care of business once again and more than doubled their history in playoff wins in the same season.
So the very fortuitous shift that you had from your 4-13 Patriots to your mighty Lions in the NFC Championship game. It's
beautifully convenient. I love it.
I know. All of a sudden, like your parents' hometown team becomes relevant to you somehow. Okay, I love it. No, but did you see the Dan Campbell speech after the game? I mean, it's exactly what you think he should be. It was just. I mean, he was glassy-eyed. It's
Yeah.
we're Warriors. We beat a damn good team out there. We're not done yet. 2 more games, and there's a bye in between. A bye week in between. Anyway, you cannot not love that guy. If you love football, you love Dan Campbell.
Absolutely.
And you root for him. So I think and Goff, my God. I mean, I got chills when all of a sudden Jared Goff, who was like basically the forgotten man and run out of town and blamed for everything in LA, even though he went to the Super Bowl. He literally was like run out of town. And then for the Detroit Lions fans who've been waiting for more than 3 decades for a playoff win, before the game to start chanting his name, a bit like Wrexham, stadium does for their players. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I mean, I loved it. And I think that's exactly the response a fan base should have to their leader on the team. So anyway, I was very happy for them. Clearly, for your mighty Lions, I think they're them and the Browns were the Cinderella stories of the season, and the Lions and their fairy tale still going on. So I'm very excited for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should note here, because I mentioned him, going back into our episode 1 when I was picking sleepers, and I was curious to see how Baker Mayfield would play out with the Bucs. He went on to have the best year of his career, and I'm looking at the line right now. I mean, they lost, but geez, Baker Mayfield, 349 yards with 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, which obviously are costly.
That's what they'll remember, the last drive with an interception.
But 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean,
he's Kirk Cousins, and he'd become Kirk Cousins for the Bucs. But here's the quandary: did the Bucs roll the dice and try to find someone in the draft, or did they sign this guy?
I don't think so. I mean,
is he the guy?
For the foreseeable future, I think. When you say roll the dice, I think they have someone good enough so that they can kind of play the waiting game a little bit. It's not, you know what I mean? They're not in desperation mode. It's not like we have to find a quarterback, so they can kind of sit back for a year or two and see.
Remember, these are not the Bucs that are in the mood to sit back and wait. Tom Brady spoiled that in 2 seconds. In his first year, okay, we can win the Super Bowl.
No, I don't know. I disagree with that, but I mean, sure. I think if after 2 more years from now, if Baker has led them to the playoffs and loses, every time, then they're like, all right.
I will allow a 2-year contract with a 3rd-year option for $10 million a year.
I bet you'll get more than that.
I'm saying, but I will allow that.
Okay.
That's my opening. That's my opening.
Right.
That's my opening negotiation.
All right, hang on. Let me get Baker's agent on the phone and confirm that you've allowed said contract to happen, and then
my negotiation supersedes the Bucs because clearly they don't know what they're doing.
Oh, perfect. All right.
The Lions are in a good place. I think they're in a good emotional and sweet spot, and so they're prime to make some people take notice this weekend. So
yes. Right, and we'll keep teasing that. We'll get to that in a second. All right, RPF, the last one, the heartbreak of the weekend for me. Oh my gosh,
Not so for me.
Part of when the Patriots are out of the playoffs, I love just being a part of energy, right? And living in upstate New York, it was obviously we went to the bar. I was like, let's go to the bar. Like I'm not first day.
Did you go to Harvey's? Because that's the official Bills bar.
We ended. We went to a couple. Don't worry about
it. Bar crawl during the game. I'm sure it was a very coherent group of yours.
But no, it was just awesome because obviously it's just the whole area up here is flooded with Bills fans, and that's what I wanted to be a part of. But at the same time, to experience the heartbreak with these people, and I was like, oh my God, and it was just so reminiscent of Norwood and the Super Bowl failures. And
the difference is that you guys had 5 or 6 rings to lay back on. They don't have any.
No, I understood. Yeah. No, I mean the Bills failures, the Super Bowl failures.
Oh, Norwood. I'm thinking. Okay. Oh no, my God, the wide right. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And where did this kick go?
Oh my God.
Right.
No, and the announcer, wide right. He goes, oh my God. He said, he was like.
I just, I couldn't believe it. And there were such uncharacteristic things. Diggs missing a couple of key catches.
No, but they played well. That's the thing that gets me. I think that has to be.
They played okay.
They played well. No, I mean, certainly well. Okay. I think they played better than they played in recent playoffs.
Well, for sure, and that's
yeah.
what I'm saying is they okay. They played okay. I would have said they played well if you get 2 of those catches and that field goal, and they win. Potato, Chiefs, Ravens, same difference. Great teams with mobile quarterbacks. Let's move on from football.
All right. Okay. Basketball. How's that for transition? NBA. Okay. Quickly, I have 3 quick points here. Boston Celtics they look as good as they've looked in a decade. They're 34-10. They won 20-something games in a row at home. They just lost this week, a couple nights ago, for the first time the whole season at home. Break some sort of record or get close to a record. Anyway, 34-10. That Celtic juggernaut is in full force. Another team that's doing tremendously well is the leading team in the Western Conference are the Minnesota Timberwolves. By the way, I had the whole discussion with Marco this weekend about nicknames for sports teams, which we know a topic we love a lot. But he was trying to discern what a Buffalo Bill was, and if the first owner was named Bill. And I said, no, Buffalo Bills. Anyway, so I've tried to explain that, and he was like, but Buffalo is their logo, like the city name, not the actual. I'm like, not the Buffalo Bill, and I'm like, okay, great. Then he said, Timberwolves. Is there a timber wolf? Is it just a wolf? I'm like, okay, we're not.
Are there desert
right,
wolves?
Right. Are there like linoleum wolves? I mean, are they like different textiles? I'm like, okay, I'm going to physically strike you if you don't walk away from it. So he said, I'm just asking questions anyone else would, which is very funny. Anyway, all right.
Right.
So the Minnesota linoleum wolves are 30-13, which is tremendous record, as you can imagine. And I was going to say the Timberwolves don't have the traditional, superstar lineup. They have Karl Anthony Towns, and I'm like, well, let me look what he's done lately. Oh, not much. Just last night, he dropped in 62 points to cause a team record of most points for the Timberwolves. And the same night, last night, Joel Embiid just dropped 70 points as the Sixers topped the Spurs and Wombat, or whatever his name is, and Wemby. I call him Wombat. Because he looks like a Wombat, like a big.
Just make it up as we go. It works.
All gangly, arms everywhere. Anyway, but basketball. In the third point I'll make is if my beloved Miami Heat, they were on a huge streak. They lost 3 in a row because Jaime Jaquez Jr., Triple J, has been out. When Bam Adebayo's out, we don't go through that stretch of losing. When Jimmy Butler, our best player, superstar Jimmy Butler, is out, we don't have the same type of effect. Even Tyler Hero was out for the first half of the season, hurt, and we had a balanced approach and won more than lost. Triple J is not there as a 6th man, and we fall apart. So tells you something about Triple J. So I'm very, very keen on my buddy Jaime Jaquez Jr. for the Miami Heat. Anyway, so the Celtics and Timberwolves are on a trajectory to kind of just explode the entire league. So I find that's just a check-in moment mid-season for where we are as we head into the All-Star break. In a similar vein, when we go into NHL, your beloved hockey, as I look at the East Conference standings, we have the Boston Bruins. Boston's having a dual run for hockey and basketball right now. I wish the Red Sox were in the same category, but they're not. They're in a different direction, as we know. But in NHL, Boston Bruins and my mighty Florida Panthers are neck and neck for the lead in the East. And the New York Rangers are tied actually with the Panthers for second. So they're all kind of just bunched up together. Very, very entertaining. Those 3 teams individually are really interesting players and interesting dynamics, and it's a very, very cool thing. And they have the Flyers nipping at their heels in the East. So all these great teams are up there. The Western Conference is not as exciting for Americans because
Yeah.
we have Vancouver and Winnipeg. I can't even say those two cities without falling asleep, but they're leading the West. But I will say Colorado and Vegas Golden Knights are nipping at their heels, so it should, in a weird, perfect world, we're just checking in halfway through the season, but Boston, Rangers, Panthers,
Yeah.
Avalanche, Golden Knights, it's all kind of competitive. So I think it's the hockey's getting fun again. It's heating up. No counter pun intended, but anyway, it's icing up. So
Please don't let it heat up; it'll melt the
exactly,
ice.
Exactly right. So
yeah, no, I think for the hockey purists, which not many of us are, but I think for the hockey purists, it is exciting. You've got traditional teams like the Bruins, Toronto, Detroit, even Montreal to a degree is hanging in there. The Rangers, Philly. I mean, these are all historically, really sound teams. And then, again, for the hockey purists to see all these Canadian teams, to see Winnipeg and
the Canucks
and Vancouver and Edmonton is up there, to see those teams in it is, I find it fun.
Yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, if you're going to pair it with a weekend with maple syrup and curling, perhaps, I find it fascinating. I find American hockey much more like, I know, look, American hockey, I know, will never be Canadian hockey, but whatever. I mean, look, I'm sure half the players on these American teams are Canadian and vice versa, so it's all kind of merged together. But I want to talk about PGA, if you don't mind, golf. Nick Dunlap, I don't know if you saw this story, John. I
did. Fantastic story.
A sophomore.
Heartbreaking in a way.
Well, amateur sophomore at the University of Alabama. So the Roll Tide have had a kind of interesting week with Nick Saban and this guy, Nick Dunlap. He's an amazing golfer. First amateur to win a PGA event in more than 3 decades. Phil Mickelson was the last one to do it. He's forfeited, to your point, $1.5 million purse by winning. He won like 29 under in this first PGA Tour event. He turned down the 500 points also that he gets with this, which also means more money. He's the 5th amateur to ever win a PGA Tour event and the 2nd youngest ever. I'm sorry, in a century. Spieth won when he was 19. So that tells you everything. So Nick Dunlap has a lot of thinking to do. He was supposed to enter this next tournament this weekend, and he pulled out because he wants to go back home to Alabama and kind of figure things out. His life has changed instantly. So lots to consider, I say. So anyway, so that's PGA. So good luck to him.
Shouldn't you be able to win, and then at the moment when you win, they're like, "All right, here,
I'm a pro,"
right? And just denounce college. I don't know.
At least before the 4th round. I think before the final round. I think that should be enough. I mean, $1.5 million. Come on, dude. He's not. He may never win again. Right? Anyway, all right. So now quickly to my favorite segment and yours. The Aaron Rodgers Memorial Asshole of the Week Award.
Okay, go ahead.
No surprise here. It is going to Novak Djokovic, the all-time great tennis player. Djokovic at this year's Australian Open, a Grand Slam, by the way, he's won 10 times, a record 10 times, and he's sitting on a current streak, half a decade in the making, of 32 wins. It's annoying that he still manages to play the victim. This is my point to all of this. Even this week, the first week of the Australian Open, he became a tough guy and basically challenged a fan to a fight during the match. I mean, it's like insanity. Meanwhile, he weighs like 66 pounds, like soaking wet. So I don't know what he's thinking about. Also, doubling down on, we talked about this a bit before, on this young American, this 20-year-old phenom, American Ben Shelton. He doubles down on Djokovic's own poor behavior at the U.S. Open last fall by flipping it around or saying that Ben Shelton needs to find more respect for the game. It's kind of an inside baseball type of discussion, but it's clearly a villain attitude to double down on a 20-year-old kid. Give me a break. I mean, meanwhile, Ben Shelton's like, I have no beef with anybody. Anyway, Djokovic is picking a fight when there's not one to have. And then, of course, his very predictable, his dark forced romance with Nick Kyrgios. It's just stuff of Darth Vader plays tennis. So Aaron Rodgers, Memorial Asshole of the Week is definitely Novak Djokovic. You cannot even conceive or imagine a Rafa Nadal or Roger Federer or Pete Sampras or Rod Laver or Pat Rafter, any of the greats to ever do any of these things. Mind you, let's not forget that Djokovic is the only player in the top echelon in tennis history to be disqualified for smacking a ball into the throat of a lines judge, at the U.S. Open. He was completely disqualified from the tournament because of that. Anyway, so this is a villain. I'm tired of pretending that and on top of everything else, something he can't help, but I'm so annoyed by. First of all, the constant bouncing of the ball before a serve. I mean, just pick up the ball and serve. Secondly, he plays so robotic where Federer is like a ballet star playing tennis. Rafa is like a bullfighter and like a constant, like a tight end. Travis Kelce playing tennis, and then Djokovic is like a bot. He's like a backboard. He just doesn't miss. And it's not his fault. That's his style of play, but it's also annoying to me who loves to see the effort coming forth and not the human backboard aspect of this. Anyway, Aaron Rodgers award this week, Novak Djokovic, easy, well earned. Now, speaking of Australian Open, let me give you the update of where we are. The top 4 seeds in the men's side, which is Djokovic, Carlos Alcaraz, my favorite, the phenom, Medvedev from Russia, and Sinner, the Italian kid, are the top 4 seeds, and they're separating themselves in a major way. For the first time in forever, the top 4 seeds look like they're going to be in the semifinals. There's still some work to do with the quarterfinals for the bottom half of the draw, but it looks like it's shaping up to be the top 4 seeds in the semifinals. If ever there was a time to watch tennis, kids, it's now. The top 4 seeds, all of them playing at the height of their talent at the same time on a surface that kind of neutralizes everybody. It doesn't have to be an expert. Everyone plays well on hard court, and it's slightly slower so everyone can catch up. It's going to be Sinner and Alcaraz tear the tar out of the ball, and you have the like we mentioned, the robotic perfection of Djokovic, who doesn't lose, and Medvedev also has that type of like grit that doesn't, also the human backboard with a kind of the villainous attitude as well. It has great storylines, great tennis. It's shaping up to be Carlos Alcaraz and Medvedev and Sinner and Djokovic. Sinner, Alcaraz, and Medvedev, all the 3 best people to have a real shot at beating Djokovic at the Australian Open. So it should be a great couple of nights and days at the Australian Open. On the women's side, Coco Gauff got the semifinals. As I mentioned, she's playing great against Sabalenka, the former number 1, who Coco beat at the U.S. Open final in a thrilling match. They're going to play in the semifinals, the number 2 and number 4 seeds. The other part of the draw are 4 women in the quarterfinals that I've never heard of. I follow tennis like no one else. They're like names I can't pronounce, lots of consonants ending in A. No idea who they are, including a qualifier, which means they have to play into the tournament. It's lunacy. So essentially, the de facto final is the winner of Coco Gauff and Sabalenka should have a very easy time. Not easy, but should win the tournament. Right. Anyway, so that's the update. Great weekend to watch tennis. The top 4 men's seeds in best of 5. So many storylines. Such good tennis. You guys are going to enjoy the F out of it. And that's my update for the Australian Open.
All right, that sounds perfect. So yeah, let's go. Coco, come on, Coco.
Coco, America.
Let's do it.
USA.
Hey, RPF, I think I'm putting a ball on this show. Are you good with me putting a ball on it? All right, let's put a ball on it. Hey, that's all the time we have for this episode of Sports, of Course, with Jonah and RPF. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you had a blast. We know we did. You can find us everywhere you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Podbean, all the great platforms, as well as socially on Instagram and X. And, of course, you can find us at our dedicated YouTube channel. Just head to any of those platforms, type in Sports, of Course, in the search bar, and we should pop Sports, of Course, with Jonah and RPF. And we should pop right up for your listening pleasure. And be sure to like, subscribe, follow, comment, do all those great things, share with everyone you know. And until next time, have a great week.
See ya.